Are you a landscape painter who want to paint looser? Do you end up struggling and adding too much detail? In this video, I want to show you how you can loosen up by suggesting forms and shapes without rendering them rigidly. This is also a great way to let go of perfection, so let me show you. This scene near my studio is really gorgeous, but it's also quite complex and filled with detail. So I start by snapping a couple of photos to get started. This exercise is all about seeing shapes and not things. So this is actually a little bit more difficult than you might expect. So I start by looking at my reference photo and squint my eyes to blur out the details. And I'm just gonna do a quick outline here. I'm not gonna actually paint within these lines. I just want to show you how you can break down a complex landscape scene into fewer shapes, and it's really a good exercise to if you want to start loosening up as well. So I'm adding the major shapes in the landscapes and also putting in a few of the clouds in the sky. These are actually the shapes as one might draw them on a piece of paper, and then you could go on adding detail and then fill in color, and this is what a lot of artists do, and this is how many of us start out. I'd like to show you a different way to more quickly loosen up your painting style. So let's take a look at that now. Instead of drawing in the shapes, I'm gonna be a bit more loose and just paint the shapes in with a brush on the side of the paper. So here you can use pre-mixed colors, or you can mix your own. But what's important is that try not to have too many shapes. Get in those the biggest, most important shapes, and then also use a relatively large brush, because you can really prevent going into too much detail if you use a larger brush. So I'll probably speed this up while I'm working on this. So if it helps, you could keep your drawing, if you do a little drawing of the shapes beforehand, you could keep that nearby to keep you informed. But I'm gonna squint my eyes and look at the reference photo and try and get in the big shapes. So the whole idea is to not get caught up in details like the grass here in front. There are some smaller spots with sunlight on it. I might include it later if I decide I need it, but for now it's just really the big shapes that's going on here. So I have this shape down here. If you do, you could add a few things, but remember, don't get too caught up in the details. See, it's difficult not to add details, I know. Definitely firsthand how that feels. Let's put in a little bit more of some green shapes over here. And I do have some green shapes over here as well. And then we have this very dark kind of forested area at the back. So I want to include that on here as well. I'm gonna go back in and make a green blob over there. I'm gonna make it a little bit bigger here, so like this, and actually maybe just let that shape go in there and here as well. Okay, so here I'm actually choosing to paint the negative space, so I'll paint the area around the clouds. So I'll paint everything but the clouds. So let's see how that works. So should have a big cloud over here, and then we had and if I don't cover everything meticulously with my brush, it will actually appear as if there are more clouds. Some of the lower clouds are actually a lot darker in color, but remember, I'm trying to reduce detail here. We're trying to really get away from the detail. So just like this, add a little bit of a line over here to indicate the structure over here without being too, it's getting a little bit too dark, but I think you get the idea. It's going to be a big gray shape over here. If I had taken a little bit more time, I would probably have made this shape over here a little bit more greenish gray from the beginning, so that I don't have to come back in and paint over top of it. See how that acrylic dries a lot darker than we expect. This really happens to me as well. So there we go. So obviously this is not a photographic likeness. It's not a finished painting or anything like this, but it's an exercise in seeing those shapes and also deciding what shapes you want to include. I could definitely go in and add more detail, but this is an exercise in, as I said, simplifying and loosening up. And I do this in a sketchbook. This is just a fairly budget type of a sketchbook with a lot of pages in it, and I can simply do a lot of these. It will help you if you do these and you do a lot of these. It will really help you to focus on value and color shifts rather than outlines. You could do this with some pastels. So if I start again in the area over here where I want the yellow-green area, this is not actually as yellow-green as I want. Just try and mix a yellow-green over here. Or I could take this one. I'll add a little bit of water on here just to make it a little bit less chalky. So And then the darker green shape here. I'm gonna put this on the side to make a bigger mark and to prevent me from going into too much detail here. And you can add as little or as much as you want to this. There's actually that green field over there. Again, I'm trying not to think of them as shapes, and that or as things in that regard. Let me try and think of them as shapes rather than things. So here we are with that shape. And I think I might just add a little bit of water to get these colors to show up better on the camera. There we go. And this, here I chose kind of a dark brownish olive color for this shape. And let me see, what can I do here? I have sort of a very indigo blue color here. And that's actually gonna be probably really nice against the yellow field there. This looks very loose, very expressive, maybe slightly messy, but that's actually the fun part of it, right? So let me try and see here. This shape here, maybe it's not quite as dark. I could darken it a little bit. Let me see if I have kind of a grayish color over here. That's the good thing, both with acrylics and these kind of pastels here, you can really go on and layer. And now that I'm looking at the value, I actually see this field. It's nice and bright, but this green down here is not quite dark enough. So I'm just gonna give it a little bit more contrast like this. Make it a little bit darker so we get some of those shapes show up a bit better there. And now for the clouds, let me just go in and make some I'm gonna try and keep it loose. Again, the big shapes here. Oops, that big cloud is not exactly like that, but anyhow, it's still a very quick expression, kind of grabbing the essence of the landscape and adding in a bit of that color here and there. So there we go. Of course, blocking in the big shapes, adding color is probably something you are used to when painting landscapes, but I bet that you are a lot more meticulous maybe with measuring everything out, maybe even going into detail with all the little textures, the little bushes, the little trees and everything. So if you want to loosen up, try this approach of looking at the big shapes, maybe limiting your materials as well. These were just really quick exercise in seeing the big shapes, narrowing them down to a color, and then also it's kind of interesting and fun, I think, the difference between the painted version and the version using the pastels. So let's take a quick look at how it looks without all this masking tape, because that's always fun to see. There are other important elements to consider, like edges, transitions, value contrast, and things like that. Seeing over here, I definitely didn't get the field light enough in value, but you know, no problem. I can add a little bit more light here to get it in. To quickly discern the shapes that you see and things like that, it's really quite helpful, and it will help to loosen you up. Even working quickly and maybe you would call it sort of messy, it will help you loosen up. We can keep adding details, of course, but this is the first step, I believe, to loosening up and just getting more free and joyful in your painting routine. If you are looking for ways to loosen up your painting style and paint looser landscapes and perhaps get back to a more relaxed way of painting, grab my free guide below. There's a link below the video here that you can download my free guide called 5 Proven Ways to Loosen Up Your Painting Style. So if you're looking for ways to loosen up your painting style and have more fun and enjoyment in your painting, you can click the link below and download the guide. I paint these kind of loose, modern, slightly abstracted, expressive landscapes, but you don't have to be a landscape painter to use the guide. It's really a guide that I share with all my students, both in real life and also online. And I have the 5 tips on my studio wall as well to remind me of staying on track and what's really important. So there's so many things to focus on when we are painting, and it's very easy to get either distracted or overwhelmed as well. So if you're interested in the free guide, please feel free to download it via the link below the video here. And thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next video.